everyone. Welcome to People Inc.'s final Lunch and Learn for 2024. My name's Tanya Gray. I'm one of the directors of People Inc. Today presenting is Cameron Gray. He's an incredibly experienced immigration advisor who's very passionate about helping individuals and businesses with all things immigration. Today we're discussing how to future-proof your workforce for 2025. There's going to be a lot to cover in the 45 minutes, so we might not be able to fit in Q&A. We have put our email address up on the final slide, so if you do have questions, feel free to chuck them in to an email and fire them through to us. Can you change the slide, please? Have you changed the slide, Cam? Can you change the slide, please?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it change. Oh, it's not changing at my end. Oh, yep, there we go. Cool, righty-ho. So for those of you that don't know People Inc., if you're an employer, we're your one-stop shop for all your people needs. If you have staff, it's likely you're going to need us. We're proudly a Kiwi-owned and operated family business and work across a variety of industries, all the way from cake reinga down to bluff. People Inc.'s made up of 4 specialist teams that I'll talk to you about briefly. Consulting HQ is a team of HR experts. We work on all projects across HR, from creating position descriptions to terminating staff, creating employment agreements, and working with business owners and advisors on developing their strategy. EMS Hub is our bespoke HR software we built in COVID, and it was built specifically for business owners to manage their employee documentation within the SME space. So Visa Aid, who are presenting today, they do all things immigration. Cameron will talk to that further. And finally, Recruiting Z. We specialise in bringing in skilled workers from the Philippines, as well as recruiting local talent in businesses for almost 20 years. So that's a bit about People Inc. Cam's going to take over now and manage the slide deck and educate everybody on immigration. So all yours, Cam.
Thanks, Tanya. Good afternoon, everybody. Just really quickly, for those who don't know us, Visa has been operating for about 10 years. As Tanya's mentioned, we're part of the People Inc. group. We provide immigration advice and application management services for businesses as well as individuals. And given our close relationship with Recruitment, we have a focus on accreditation, job checks, and AEWV. A bit about me: I've been in immigration for about 20 years now. I started out as an immigration officer. Nowadays, I mainly deal with providing businesses with guidance regarding everything immigration, from new entities being created to employment issues and beyond. So it's a bit about me. The agenda today, got to be quick, so we'll take a brief look at the April changes, just to remind people about what actually changed in April, how those repercussions are being felt right now, and we'll look at some of the partner changes as well, and how this will affect businesses, and we'll take a look at what can be done for employees that hold AEWVs and the timing of recruitment, if that's necessary. I just want to add that Immigration did announce that they'll replace the ANZSCO with the National Occupation List sometime in 2025. They didn't give us a date. So, it's got the potential of changing the landscape a bit, and the information that you'll receive today. We'll try and we'll keep you up to date with changes. So if you haven't already, please sign up to our newsletter. And also, just a quick disclaimer. This webinar is just for information purposes only. We strive to ensure that the information here is accurate at the time of the presentation, but you should always seek professional advice before acting on anything you hear and see today. So I feel like employers have been a bit shafted by the changes. I use the word shafted because I feel it needs to hit the point. So I think, talking to a lot of businesses these days, they really feel like these changes have been quite negative. So if you're feeling that way, I absolutely agree. The changes had a massive effect on processing time. So you'll see your job checks and AEWV applications go to unbearable processing levels. We have seen in the last couple of weeks some improvement on that, but we won't really know if it's a real change until maybe earlier next year. Also, some of the changes have meant that current workers are not able to be retained. So those that are holding, I've come across essential skills work visas where they had open work rights and they don't meet the new requirements of the AEWV. And that's going to cost businesses. So there's a couple of occasions where I've seen that. And for some of the AEWV applicants that are on these 36-month visas, next year's their final year here. And yeah, that's going to be painful to deal with. Just a quick reminder of the changes. The minimum skills threshold. So any applicant that's applying for an AEWV now needs to meet the minimum skills threshold, unless they're exempt. So unless they're on the green list or earning 2 times the national median wage, or they're applying for a job change. Job change avoids the minimum skills. Also, employers are now obligated to assess whether a visa applicant meets the job check and minimum skills criteria. So there's an obligation there now. And English for ANZSCO 4 to 5 occupations, and this includes current staff. So it's not just for new applications or overseas recruits. It's for current staff as well. They might not have done an English test previously. The last kind of change was the labour market testing, just being extended for the lower skilled roles. Plus, the employer now needs to engage with WINS directly. So I assume that all the employers that are listening today will have a pretty robust recruitment process. There was a gaping hole there where some employers that were bringing in AEWV holders, they weren't even looking at the candidate, didn't even see any information. So the government tightened that up, put it into immigration instructions, and that provided immigration with the power to cancel or revoke accreditation just down to poor recruitment processes. So move on to the stand down period, which is really what this is all about, is the fact that the stand down period isn't new. It came into effect not long after the borders were opened. It kind of blindsided most people in the industry. And it's a new application. So anybody that's applying for a new AEWV won't be able to get that visa unless if they've reached their maximum stay period, unless they've spent 12 months outside of New Zealand. So they can't just jump on a different type of visa for 12 months and then go back on their AEWV. They have to leave the country for 12 months. So those, faced with the stand down period, they could be facing it after 36 months after being here. So next year is really when this is going to come into effect. And for those that can extend or have 5-year visas, okay, that pushes it by another couple of years. So we'll go on and look at ways of avoiding that. And just on the last lot of changes we've received, which is on the conditions of partner visa. So this is partners of AEWV holders. From the 2nd of December, some of these partners will not have the conditions to work with an accredited employer and earn at least the national median wage. So it's a positive step at least, but it only affects some partners. So partners who are in ANZSCO 1 to 3 skill level roles, or they're in 4 to 5 roles, but they're earning at least the median wage. Or they're eligible under the sector agreements. Those partners might be able to fall under those instructions, or the new changes, I should say. Partners who are already here with the conditions can ask for them to be removed. They do a variation of conditions application to have them removed, but they must apply to have them removed. So how do we retain our AEWV staff? Option 1 really is for those that are on 36-month visas, we're looking at whether we can reuse the token, the job tech token. So firstly, we need to be assured that they are in the same position, location, they're earning the same pay or more, so median wage or higher, and they're with the same employer as per the original AEWV that they arrived in New Zealand on, or they obtained while they're in New Zealand. If their job changed, if they've changed position, location, or any of that, then they're not eligible for this this 2-year extension of their visa. When we're doing these extensions, the first thing we do is look at the job check that was used and whether it's ANZSCO skill level 1 to 3. The ANZSCO has only just been brought back into AEWV, so prior to April 2024, there was no impact of using an ANZSCO code that was level 4 to 5. It didn't reduce the stay of the visa. It didn't really do anything. So a lot of job checks went through and using possibly the incorrect ANZSCO code, sometimes in a positive way, other times in a negative way. If a skill level 1 to 3 was used in the job check, we need to look at whether the AEWV holder can then meet the minimum skills threshold, or whether they're exempt. If they are, this might be the way to go to at least extend them for another 2 years. So again, it's only applicable to the ones that hold the 36-month visa. And just quickly looking at the exemptions to the minimum skills threshold. So they're either on the green list, which means they meet the requirements of the green list also. So they can't just have an occupation there and that's it. They must meet the requirements. Or they're getting paid 2 times the median wage, higher pay, or there are some that will be in sector agreements that you can see there that they might have an exemption to the minimum skills threshold. Still looking at reusing this token. If you find that the ANZSCO code is a 4 to 5 skill level, we need to have a look if they can meet any of the criteria for those in the lower skilled roles. So lodging their initial application, now that's the key word, lodging or submitting. If they had submitted their application between those dates, and they were paid over the national median wage, then they might meet the requirements just like that. So they're lower skilled, but because the government feel that this cohort of people were under the impression that they could get their 5-year visa. So they've allowed lower skilled workers that lodged their application between that date. So it's not approved, it's lodged or submitted. Do they meet the green list? That's another way of meeting the requirements. And if they don't, are they eligible? Are they in an eligible sector agreement or paid 1.5 times the national median wage, or which is the paused median wage for AEWV? So if we come across a situation where the job check was ANZSCO 4 to 5 and the worker doesn't meet the criteria to use the token, we relook at the ANZSCO code that was used in the job check. So we match it up against the job description and we have a look and say, okay, was the right code used, or could we find a closer match that's ANZSCO 1 to 3? And if we find a better match to the job, then we could look at submitting a new job check. The worker could then apply for a new AEWV, and that would be a further 2-year visa. You've got to remember that they must still meet the minimum skills threshold, and the job check may require labour market testing. So it's one of the last steps that I'll take is just to have a look at that job description and just assess whether or not we've made a good choice with the ANZSCO code. This pathway also opens up an opportunity for these workers to obtain residency. It's a small opportunity. Residency is quite difficult, and usually this is through the skilled migrant category. And for skilled migrant, they must have a bachelor's degree or higher qualification, or able to obtain 1.5 times the SMC median wage, which is just it's a little bit outside of the possibilities for most people at the moment. And just a little warning there. Immigration's on the lookout for inflated job descriptions. They understand that employers want to retain their staff, and that they might submit a job description that the tasks and duties are higher skill, and the applicant really isn't doing that job. And they do love to, what I say is that they bash down an ANZSCO 1 to 3 job check right down to a 4 to 5, and that's a fun game for immigration these days. The next step that I'll take, if we don't meet any of this or these criteria that we've been looking at, and they can't reuse the token, the next step is to see whether or not we can offer the employee a higher position. And we've got to keep in mind that when we do that, the position has to be still relevant to the employee's work experience. Relevant, it's a loose term, but you've got to be very careful there to keep it within the bounds of their work experience or their qualification, whichever's being used to meet the minimum skills or the job check requirements. So I find this a harder thing to do. Sometimes in businesses there's just not a high position for them. But if there is a high position and they've got relevant experience for it, it is a good way. I mean, that would require a job check, labour market testing, most likely, and a new AEWV. But that's a possibility. The last option I take is to look at at partners. So we want to see whether or not the partner can become an AEWV holder, and then your AEWV employee can then obtain a partner visa. So we switch them around. That way, you could be buying another 3 to 5 years there. So it's the last option, but I've seen good cases where the partner has taken over. So it's worth investigating. The other way of really avoiding the stand down period and getting these guys to remain with you is residency. And as I say, residency is quite tough. Really, the first thing to look at is whether it's green list. If we're green list, straight to residence is a quite a simple application and quite fast to process, and obviously most people would have done that by now. Work to residence, which is still on the green list, requires 2 years in the position before they can apply. And there's some wage requirements there that you need to be aware of, and it can be a bit tricky to ensure that they meet the requirements of WTR, or work to residence. Just be mindful of that. Again, anybody that's trying to use the green list to apply for residency, they must meet the requirements of that, which is usually pay, qualifications, or occupation registration. There's a little bit there about the ANZSCO assessment. They've got to be considered in that position. So the ANZSCO assessment to me is quite, I worry a little bit about that, but it's just something to probably seek some professional advice about. And there's also healthcare and transport work to residence options that's not mentioned on those occupations aren't mentioned on the green list, so they're separate applications. But most employers will know whether or not the employees will meet that criteria. Just moving on to the skilled migrant category.
Which slide are you on? Sorry, Cam, just so for those of us that have no access.
Which is 18.
Thank you.
So if we're not able to get onto the green list, then we're looking at skilled migrant, most likely. It's the only real other option. And it's never been more difficult than it is today for most migrants. As I say, they either need a bachelor or a higher qualification, or they need 1.5 times the national median wage, or they need occupation registration. So those three things. If they don't have one of those three things, they don't meet, and they're tough. So for those in trades, impossible pretty much for most of them. For those that can meet those requirements, they then need 1, 2, or 3 years of New Zealand skilled work experience before they're eligible to apply. So that gets them the 6 points that they need. And for those that are in the 4 to 5 roles, if they can manage to get 1.5 times the median wage, they'd need they need at least 3 years relevant New Zealand work experience, sorry, skilled New Zealand work experience at that higher rate. So if you were to give that rate to them today, there's potential for that worker not to have enough time to meet requirements because they'll be faced with a stand down period at some point. So it's something that the government, it's something that immigration keeps saying, we'll sort it out, don't worry about it, there's no hurry. But I think they're wrong, and they need to make some serious changes quickly so that the likes of myself can provide you with some better advice. And we know that the minister is looking at SMC as trying to make changes, especially for trades workers. But she's recognised that changing the policy is tough, is time consuming, and maybe those changes won't happen in time for some. And she hinted at using the green list as a way of trying to fix the residency pathway a bit, again, especially for the trades. So that was some good news. When that would happen, who knows? So the next slide, what does this all mean for businesses? I feel like businesses are in a bit of a dilemma right now, and they may lose a lot of their migrant workforce in the next 1 to 3 years. And there's no signs of the stand down period being relaxed by the government. They're not even talking about it. So I think there's some tough decisions to be made. If you go to the next slide, those in lower skilled roles, they're the first to leave, and that's going to hit hard for some of the industries: healthcare, hospitality, farming, concrete, scaffolding, just to name a few of them. It will be a painful time, especially if you've recruited in a major way when the borders opened and got a large cohort of workers all at once, because they're all going to be at a similar time leaving. Next slide is those in higher roles. They're also affected by the stand down period, and we'll see them leaving in 2027 if things don't change. We'll have an election by then, so maybe things will change. So we do need to look at the options that I've outlined, prior to this slide, to try and avoid those stand down periods. If we have no options, that's where a recruitment plan needs to be in place. And just on the next slide, so most businesses I've been speaking with, they can't afford to wait and see if there'll be some positive changes. So recruitment to me needs to be at the forefront of businesses' minds right now, especially if the economy is to pick up towards the end of next year, which is predicted. So yeah, I expect change. I think it's going to come too late for a lot, but that's just something to keep your eyes and ears on immigration to see if any of this does change. So if you've got any questions, please let me know. Feel free to email us. I'll get back to you on it. But for now, I'll leave you back to Tanya.
Cool. Thanks, Cam. Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. I'm not sure what's gone on, but if you're using technology, it's bound to play up. So, look, this is going to be a real challenge for a lot of businesses, hey, Cam, because they've obviously recruited in large cohorts, as you've said, and we've got these so-called fast-track projects coming through. Businesses have had their guys for years. They're all trained up. They're highly productive, and they're potentially going to have to leave New Zealand. That's what you're saying for some of these lower-level roles, hey?
Yeah, it's going to be a hairy time.
Yeah.
It's manageable. It's going to be recruiting in stages, re-recruiting in stages, and exhausting the can we keep our current workforce options.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess for those of you that employ migrant workers, now more than ever, you need somebody like Cameron or one of the licensed immigration advisors in our team to almost be, your go-to person and have a good relationship with somebody that you can trust, that's staying aware of what is going on in the market. Because I don't know how many times immigration rules have changed this year. The team in Visa Aid are just constantly updating our wider team on changes and our clients. And gosh, it's really, really hard to keep up with. So, and I'm in amongst it, not as much as the immigration team, but it's really hard to keep up with. So, business owners have had a really tough year, and I just think that having someone like Cameron and the team to be there for you, to help you, so you don't do things the wrong way, it can cost a lot of money. Anyway, I'll stop talking about that, and I'll go on to talk to my slide. I'm talking to slide 23 now. I'm talking about recruitment. So I'm going to talk to the recruitment piece of the puzzle when it comes to recruiting skilled migrant workers. That's my passion. The team at Recruiting Z are known for and specialising in recruiting skilled migrant workers from the Philippines. And we've been doing it successfully for years, and we've landed hundreds, if not thousands, of workers. We know it takes time to get employees trained up. In some businesses it may be 3 to 6, 9 months for some roles. We don't have that much time up our sleeve for a lot of these roles that will have to stand down and leave New Zealand. So if you know that your migrant workforce isn't going to be able to stay in New Zealand past their 3 years, you seriously need to factor in if you'll utilise your existing migrant workforce to assist with training and new recruits and a handover process or not. That's the very first step of the process. If you do have your existing workforce training up the new recruits, you're going to have double the wages, and that's not financially viable to have that crossover. When you know the dates that your workers have to leave New Zealand, and that's where the immigration team can help, and how long it takes to backfill and train up these new recruits, that's where we can start to plan with you the next steps in terms of re-recruiting, if that's something you're going to have to do. It's likely if you couldn't find the workers in New Zealand 3 years ago, you won't be able to find them now. In fact, we've got the brain drain going to Australia, and there's thousands of workers leaving to go across the ditch and live in Aussie every single week. If you do start to plan early, though, we can help to minimise the disruption in your business. Many businesses can't afford to be short-staffed for long periods. There's projects on the books for 2025, some of those fast-track projects if they ever come through. And losing a chunk of the workforce will absolutely cripple a project and blow the budgets out. After the last few years that business owners have had, the last thing we need is more challenges in 2025. Back in the day, when the borders opened, we were able to land workers from the Philippines in a matter of months, like maybe 3 months. Now with immigration's pace or lack of it, we're slowed right down. Thankfully, they are trying to speed things up. They've made a few changes, but if you need workers to be in your business in New Zealand in April or May, then now's when you need to begin. If you aren't yet accredited, you need to get this moving fast. Let us know. Christmas is coming soon. Immigration may close down over that Christmas holiday period. You need to get things sorted before Christmas. My advice is to get vacancies listed with us and our partners if you are going to go offshore. Then we can gain access to some of the top talent pools before your competitors do, and have the pick of the bunch when it comes to replenishing your workforce. In the last couple of weeks, I've already seen an increase in some businesses looking to recruit talent from offshore, so things are showing signs of picking up again. If you haven't worked with us before, I'd be happy to share with you our tried and tested processes to ensure that top talent, or top quality talent, should I say, is recruited for your business. Not only do we provide end-to-end recruitment services, but we've also got a full wraparound service for our employers and for migrants with the pastoral care and settlement support. Getting the right workers the first time and not lemons, and ensuring that they settle into your business as quickly as possible is key. And that's what we do for our businesses throughout New Zealand. On behalf of the team at People Inc., we really do thank you for your time today. Can somebody please move us to the next slide? If somebody can manage the slides. No, it looks like they're still frozen. Righty ho. So I'm on slide 25 now. We've come to the end of our presentation. If you'd like a copy of it, although we jammed at slide 14, it may not be particularly useful to rewatch, but if you'd like to book in for a complimentary consultation to discuss your matters, please send us an email. Thanks for taking the time for being here today. We hope you have a better understanding of the processes involved in immigration and recruiting skilled migrant workers. And what we will be doing is sending a follow-up email to everyone after this webinar, and in that we will have our email address that was listed on our final presentation, on our final slide of our presentation. So if you can get to slide number 26, our email address is on there if anyone wants to fire us through any questions. But yeah, thanks everyone for taking the time to attend. And let us know if you've got any questions at all. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.